Welcome, I am Tangiere, and this is Transparency Saves Lives, where we are creating safe spaces for healing and empowerment. Welcome to my podcast. So first, I want to thank you all for tuning in to my very first podcast. I have been trying to figure out how I wanted to show up in the social media space for a while now, and I felt this was the perfect way for me. If you know me, then you know that I love to overshare, so I am creating a platform where I can do just that. Not only do I want to share my story, but I want to share your story in hopes that our stories can help someone else along their life journey. If you don't know me, then allow me to introduce myself. Again, I am Tangiere, and I am a Pisces sun, a Leo moon, and a Scorpio rising. If you don't know what that means, then that is your Google homework. I am also a manifesting generator in a life path number 2. More Google homework for you. Essentially, I am a mysterious, mystical, feminine being with psychic abilities who loves to keep the peace, but don't try to tell me what to do or I will go quietly do the exact opposite. I can also take a lot from people, but once I get pushed to my breaking point, I'm burning that shit to the ground along with all the bridges. Just ask my exes. I'm also a wife, a mom to a little 7-year-old girl who thinks she's 17, a cat mom to 3 cats. I have 2 boys and a girl. I'm also a certified Reiki practitioner, a doula, a tarot and oracle card reader, a coach, and a creator. I specifically love to create crystal jewelry like this obsidian arrowhead that I'm wearing now. I handmade this and I hand make all of my jewelry. I like to create lock oil for my lock heads out there. I have been in my lock game now for 5 years and I'm actually going pretty strong. Normally I don't keep styles for a while. My first set of locks I combed out after about a year, but we 5 years in and I actually love it. Now that I'm actually like at a length that I feel comfortable with, I love it. I also like to create music in my spare time. I actually went to school for music. I am an alumnus, or I don't know the girl version of it, but I went to Florida A&M University, Rattler for life. The reason I started this podcast, or rather named the podcast My Resilience is Stronger Than Life's Resistance, is because last night I was scrolling on TikTok, as most of us do when we should be sleeping, and I was watching a video between a father and a son. He was helping his son who is wheelchair bound, and like I watched one video and he was coaching him as he learned how to pull himself up onto the couch, with just his arms and without the use of his legs. He looked about between the age of 6 and 8 maybe. And then I watched another video, since we're binge watching at this point. I watched another video where he told his son, "Your resilience is stronger than life's resistance." And he was like, "Let me hear you say it." And this little boy said, "My resilience is stronger than life's resistance." And I broke down and cried. I literally broke down and cried because I really did something to my spirit, just considering all the things that I've been through in life and not realizing just how resilient I am oftentimes. A lot of times I feel like I'm weak for falling apart, when things are going wrong or when I'm feeling depressed or anxious. Like I just oftentimes feel like a mess. And so it always shocks me when I do share my story and people say, "Oh wow, you're so strong, you're so resilient, like, you're a light in this world." And I'm like, really? Me? A light? Resilient? I'm over here thinking about suicide and like not wanting to live. Like, not saying that I would ever do it because I do have a reason to live, but those are just my thoughts. Like, me resilient? No. So yeah, I said all that to say that I realized last night that my life has been a life lesson on resilience. If you know me personally, then some of the things that I've gone through that I'm just like, "Oh, la, 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 la. Yeah, I went through this and I went through that." And people are like, "What, girl? Like, you went through that?" Yes. So over the next couple of podcasts, I'm going to be sharing my story in depth, my story of resilience, and sharing some of the things that I have gone through. I will be sharing my personal stories of domestic abuse, specifically narcissistic abuse. Like, I feel like narcissistic abuse And the word narcissist and narcissism is getting a bad rap. Not necessarily, but it should get a bad rap because narcissism is crazy. But I feel like, I guess it got so mainstream that people are now becoming dismissive of the experience. Like, when you hear the word narcissist, or when someone labels someone as narcissistic, they're like, oh, whatever, everybody's, toxic, or everybody's narcissistic, or I don't know. I think it's just people have talked about it so much and it's become so mainstream that it's losing the significance of just how serious it is. Like, that type of abuse, that level of abuse, it's mostly psychological abuse. That shit is wild, and we're going to talk about that. I'm going to share my story of narcissistic abuse. I'm going to talk about redefining my faith in that process of how I went from being like a very devout, strict Christian. I went through my Hebrew Israelite phase. It seems that, a lot of African Americans go through their Hebrew Israelite phase when they're trying to redefine their faith. So I went through my Hebrew Israelite phase, and now I'm into spirituality. I do go to church. I was able to make my way back to church, but I can't say that I'm a practicing Christian, because I believe to be a practicing Christian, you have to actually practice and follow the Bible. And there are certain things that I'm currently doing in my life now that I know the Bible says do not do that, and I'm doing it. So I don't consider myself a practicing Christian. I also believe that after studying a lot of different ancient religions and seeing everyone tell the same story in different ways, I feel like we just all trying to make it. Everybody's just trying to make it. So I realized that, or I personally believe that a lot of Christians aren't actually practicing Christianity. But that's another conversation for another day. So we all just out here trying to make it. So I like to go to church because I believe God is God. No matter what you believe or who you worship, God is God. There is a creator, and that creator has similar qualities throughout all religions. So yeah, that's just my little spill on that. So I'm going to go into that and another topic of how that transition happened and how I made my way back, and how I've made peace with God and with where I'm at, being in church, but practicing, other things along with Christianity or with church, whatever. I do want to go into more depth about my miscarriage and early pregnancy loss journey. I have now had 3 miscarriages. 2 of them were farther along. This last one was considered a chemical pregnancy, and unfortunately a lot of people kind of like disregard it as, oh, well, if you didn't take the test, you wouldn't have known. It's still, when you're actually trying, or even if you're not trying but you want a child, like I said, and you see them 2 lines, that's it. I'm pregnant. I got a child. And then to not be pregnant, it's like, what? It's devastating regardless. So I want to talk about that in more depth and my journey with that. I want to talk about living with mental illness and what that's like for me. And yes, I consider myself to have a mental illness because I have been dealing with anxiety and depression for years at this point, since high school. Like, it has been an up and down thing all around. Like, the reason why I just accepted the fact that I have a mental illness is because that was how I got myself to take my struggles seriously. I have been trying to manage for a while, like without medication. I've tried Jesus. I tried meditation. I've tried everything. And the only thing that's working for me right now is medication. And I decided to take the medication when I realized that, like, I have a serious problem that I need help with, and none of the things that I've tried is working for me. And I told myself, I was like, if I had diabetes, I would take my medication. Like, I would take it seriously. And so I was like, you know what, damn, I guess I need to treat my mental health as if it is an illness currently. Because I do believe that I personally believe mental health can be healed with, the changing of eating habits and better lifestyle practices, or it can be managed if not fully healed. But the way my brain is set up, we don't even have the motivation to get those things done, to make those changes. So that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm using medication to help me with. So I want to talk about that in more depth and what that's like. and how my brain works, and because we be on a struggle bus sometimes. Like, yeah. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about finding my voice and the journey to finding my voice to even be able to do this podcast. Like, I have been in therapy for years. Talking about what I want to do. I've been in business coaching for years. And I'm just now finding the courage to put myself out there, to share my story, to do what I know that I'm called to do. And that has been a challenge and a struggle for me. So I want to share my story of finding my voice. I want to share my natural birth story and how I decided to become a doula. So that'll probably be in combination with like the whole miscarriage story, because that is a part of my pregnancy journey, and I'm now starting a new pregnancy journey with my now husband. So we'll talk about that when that starts. And then I also want to talk about waiting until marriage to have sex. So I have been married twice now. This is my second marriage. And when I got married the first time, I was a virgin. And I would give it 2 stars. Yeah, 2 stars. Not everyone has had that experience that has waited to have sex until marriage. And I will say that it probably has more so to do with who I married the first time as to why I would only give it 2 stars. But I would give it 2 stars. I would not recommend it. Yeah, I would not recommend it. So I want to talk about that in another podcast. And I'm sure that I will have many, many more stories to share as I open up and dive in deep. But those are some of the first few topics that I want to talk about. Essentially, the whole purpose of this podcast that I'm doing, I want you guys to know that if I can make it through growing up with a parental figure who has schizophrenia, if I can make it through poverty, growing up in poverty, if I can make it through homelessness, abuse, religious trauma, having my faith and my religious beliefs demolished, and then having to rebuild them back up. If I can make it through depression and anxiety and psychiatric hospitalizations, I've had 2 of them. If I can make it through divorce, becoming a single mother as a result of divorce, dating after divorce, and then finally remarrying, then you guys can make it through whatever you're going through as well. That is the purpose of this podcast. I want to share my story. I want to hear your story. And if you're excited about going on this journey with me, of my journey of transparency and openness, then I really want you to comment. I want you to like. I want you to subscribe. Whatever platform that you're listening to this on, whether you're listening to it on like a podcast platform or watching on YouTube, follow, like, comment, subscribe, because you don't want to miss these podcasts. And if you're interested in sharing your story, then I want you to go on my Instagram right now, AM Tangiere, and I want you to click on the link in the bio, and I want you to submit your information and your form so that I can get you on this podcast, so we can share your story. And if you are watching this on YouTube, then just click, in the description box, and you can find the link there. I want to share your story. I don't want to just be the only one talking. I like to hear the people's stories, and I like to help people through their story. So even if you feel like you need some guidance through your story, like I said, I'm also a coach. I don't know if I mentioned that in the beginning of this, but that is something that I naturally do and something that I love to do. So if you want to be coached on camera and we can get your breakthrough on camera, come share your story, get you your breakthrough, and let's help others get their breakthrough. So I just wanted to make this this podcast episode short and sweet to just kind of let you guys know what you can expect. And until next time, remember that your story matters and it should be heard, because transparency saves lives.